Hey, good afternoon. Happy Savage Saturday, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and we're here with Savage Saturday Comic Review, episode 88. Can you believe it? And today, with it going into October, we have a nice, short horror story from Robert E. Howard. Now, this is a story called The Black Stone, which was published in 1931 originally in Weird Tales magazine. So it's old. It's part of the Cthulhu mythos of H.P. Lovecraft. It's one of those stories tied to that universe, and there are at least one or two disturbing things in this. So you've been warned. It is a horror story. There is some shock to it, and it is not lightly written. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. Now, this particular adaptation appeared in The Savage Sword of Conan, issue 74, which had a killer and one of the most famous, Joe Jusko cover. Of course, that's not the story we're reviewing. But this adaptation is, of course, by Roy Thomas, who just does incredible adaptations. Roy Thomas understands source material like no other when he's adapting, and he stays true to it, and it always has the feel of the original story, which I really appreciate about Roy Thomas's writing. The art in this is brilliant, and it's by Gene Day, and it reflects the horror of the situation and really fits the tale that's being told here. But let's not stall any further. You got a little history of it. Again, considered one of the best Robert E. Howard horror stories. I think there's quite a few. 12 or more. He wrote a lot of horror, and a lot of it was really good. So this story, of course, The Black Stone, adapted from the story by Robert E. Howard, script by Roy Thomas, art by Gene Day. And we'll read it. The preface here, it says, I had read of it first in the strange book of Von Juntz, the German eccentric who lived so curiously and died in such grisly and mysterious fashion. And now I had come myself to the mountains of Hungary to see the Black Stone. The sun was setting in what seemed a pool of blood as we left this is going to be tough. Stregokavar, that all but unknown village whose name can be vaguely translated as Witch Town. Now, I'm going to show you this spread, and what an incredible piece of artwork by Gene Day to convey this city, this town, this little horrific village where this atrocity takes place, right? Just take a look at that art. Incredible. You get the horror feel right away. It sets a tone. It puts you in the mindset. Everything that good art should do. And with the words of Robert E. Howard accompanying it, just great. So, this guy, so Costigan is being brought into town, passed through town by his hired carriage driver, and the carriage driver is just really talkative. He's nervous, and Costigan is just listening to him go on, and the driver is like, Mr. Costigan, there was another American came here 10 years ago to see the Black Stone. His name was Jeffrey, Justin Jeffrey. Do you know of him? And Costigan says, oh, I know of him. He is a poet who died screaming in a madhouse several years ago. And the driver just simply says, oh, that's too bad. It's too bad. And he's trying to warn Costigan that people who see the stone don't live to talk about the stone. So they are in the clearing, and the driver pulls up and stops the horse and carriage. And Costigan's like, why are we stopping here, driver? He goes, it is, sir, through yonder woods. He goes, me and no one else in the village will take you any farther, especially on this midsummer night, which is when there's like a ritual, supposedly. Now, if it was tomorrow night, maybe I could take you a bit. And Costigan's like, no, it must be midsummer night. Thank you, driver. I'll see you back in town. And the driver just races off. Like, he has no thoughts of Costigan living past this evening now. He's done with him. He drives away. He is forlorn. He's just delivered another person to their doom. and or so he thinks. So off the driver goes. Now Costigan sees the castle, and as he talks, like the castle itself, a souvenir of the days when the Turks swept over Eastern Europe under, under the Soylent the Magnificent, interested me little. He goes, as I walked past it toward the forest, it was the vaguely blasphemous legends surrounding the fabled black stone which engaged my attention. I wondered if, perhaps, I had made an error coming there alone. And we're going to show you this art in a second. He goes, after all, the peasants of the area whispered ominously of tales regarding two curious people who ventured to visit that strange monolith on Midsummer Night, and who died madmen because of what they saw there. Of course, none of those stories were verified, except perhaps the one about the mad poet Justin Jeffrey. And even he died some 5 years afterward. But then, he didn't come up here on this certain night, did he? He goes, at any rate, my studies had me curious, and my uncle's recent inheritance had made it possible for me to attempt to satiate that curiosity. And look at these 2 pages of art. And then you see on the bottom, he breaks through the shrubbery, and he is stopped dead by what he witnesses. So the horror is being set up quite well. The prose is magnificent. It has that old school feel to it, and that adds history and depth to the story, in my opinion. It really gets you in that horrific mood. It really sets you in this time period, and it really gives you a sense of unease while the story unfolds. So we turn the page, and we'll give you a look at the art. I'll read some, tell you what it's about, and then we will go back to it for a moment. Again, it's a dark story, guys, so he witnesses the Black Stone. He goes, it was as Von Junt's book had described it, octagonal in shape, some 16 feet in height, and about 1.5 feet thick. And it had this weird writing inscribed on it, going in ringlets all the way up the stone to the very top. And there's a cool little history he gives on the stone. Those, however, were only its physical dimensions, and besides, the German wrote of it once being the base of a column more than 1,000 feet high. Moreover, who could have built such a thing? Especially if it was of the vast age Von Junt's claim. Supposedly, the Black Stone was already old and broken off the top when Attila and his Huns had passed this way long centuries before. So even the storytelling, the prose is setting up the ancient evil and menace that this stone encompasses in the centuries and centuries that it's been here, permeating its evil. And so he's going up, and he goes, I can well believe what the Black Book claimed, that the stone was once the object of worship and of an ancient fertility cult, such as those which later gave rise to tales of witchcraft. He goes, and then all of a sudden he felt drowsy, as though he had slept long the night before, and he fell asleep there beneath a broad silver moon. And then, later on, he suddenly awoke, and when he awoke, the glade was no longer deserted. There was a whole bunch of people dancing around the stone, wearing dead animal hats and stuff on headdresses on their head of goats and bears and all sorts of animals. And there was a bound woman and a child on the ground beside the stone. So more menace is being brought forward from the stone. There's this cult here that's worshiping the stone. They're having pagan rituals around the stone, dancing, singing, chanting, and there's 2 sacrifices laying on the ground, which as soon as you see, it's bad enough that you see a bound woman there, but when you see the child there, it creates more unease. And he's entranced, he's watching. And then he sees another woman come out, and she starts doing this sensuous dance around the stone, like a dance of worship. And she spins dizzily on her toes. She whirls across the ground, a dance of spinning, sensuous ecstasy. And when at last she fell motionless before the great black stone, a fantastic figure followed her, a bunch of long fir branches in his hand, the moonlight glittering on a weird pendant around his neck. And this pendant is like this amphibious pendant. And the gathered throng shouted ever louder as he neared her. And once he got there, he started whipping her with these switches, and until she was bleeding. And then she crawled, and then she started dancing again and singing while he was whipping her until she collapsed on the ground and then crawled to the monolith, a bloody mess. And and while she was doing this, crawling there, everyone was chanting one word. And he knew it was one word, but he couldn't make out what the word was, which was creating more unease in him. He's still locked there. He's still watching. He's still helpless. And he goes, but what that one word was, I could not make out. As I beheld the girl cover the cold stone with hot, adoring kisses. Next, through the swaying mob, the priest stepped to cast his wolf-like shadow over the swaddled baby I had noticed before. And this is the tough part of the story. I'm going to warn you guys. This priest, and goes, I can call him nothing else but a priest. He picks up this child, and he dashes the child against the stone and kills the child right there. Murders a child. It's quite disturbing stuff. And he goes, now all shouted the obscene, blasphemous name again, even as my senses reeled, and I tried to awaken from what I prayed was but a suggestible scholar's nightmare. But then, when I looked up to behold a mist forming atop the stone, a mist which was slowly forming itself into something alive. And this creature that Jean Day draws is amazing. The art is incredible. The previous page, it's nothing horror bothers me. The stuff that bothers me is when children are harmed, even in a fiction story. I find it bothersome. But it's part of the story, right? And atrocities occur. So this monster appears, and now the wolf-masked priest, he lifts up the girl that's bound to it and offers her up to this frog-like creature. And we're going to show you this, and pay not so much attention to this, because that's really horrific, but to this. Look at the detail on this creature by Jean Day. Absolutely amazing. Incredible detail. And just a brutal horror story, right? So we're going to go on to the next page. And it's the last page. So the creature picks her up, and he goes, and as that monstrosity sucked in its breath and reached horribly toward her, something snapped in my brain, and I fell into a merciful faint. It was only shortly before dawn when I opened my eyes again, and a monolith still brooded gaunt and silent above the sward. The ground was bare, no drop of crimson, no track of naked feet. A dream then, as I had hoped and prayed. It was then that I spied something amid the untrampled grasses, something which sent me screaming from that grisly place in a paroxysm of primeval fear. It is only through the grace of God that I did not join in madness those who had watched before me on midsummer night. For there, in the sward before the monolith of evil, lay an object which proved to me that man was not always master of the earth, if he ever was. And as he bears witness to the last atrocity, he passes out, wakes up, being thankful it's all a dream, only to see the pendant which he viewed on the wolf priest, and realize that it wasn't a dream, and that he was witness to everything that happened the night before. And that's the horror tale, guys. And I think you'll agree, it's a really good horror story. It's really horrific. I read it a few times. It's one, and I'm a horror guy. Nothing bothers me in horror except kids being harmed. This particular story, that part is very difficult for me to read. Just anytime a child's in peril, but it's a good horror story. It's a well-written horror story. The verbiage, the prose, it all puts you in the time and place that this happens. The art in this is A++ all the way around by Jean Day. His art puts you in this place also, in this time period. The adaptation, the words of Robert E. Howard, the visual bluntness and dexterity of Jean Day to draw such a horrific creature, but yet such detailed work, and to draw you in and to put you in this time and place is amazing. But that's it, a horror story for the upcoming month of Halloween on Savage Saturday, episode number 88. Let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy the horror story? Did you think it was a bit too much for the channel? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, keep it casual. Attention all, use channel sponsor Rogue Trader at theroguetraderutah.com and my code Keep It Casual for 10% off your comic cleaning and pressing needs. Remember, when submitting your books to be graded, use a trusted professional.